Hello, and welcome to the Herald newsletter with me, David Carr, founder and chief editor. In this video, we're going to be looking at Romania. What's going on there? Something very odd, and it could have implications well beyond Romania's borders. Stay tuned. Romania is a country which I must confess I don't know a great deal about. In common with most people, uh, I know about Transylvania, the home of Vlad Dracul, the inspiration for Count Dracula, and I'm old enough to remember, for example, the gymnastic star Nadia Comaneci and the tennis player Ilia Nastase. But otherwise, my knowledge is sadly lacking. Romania doesn't make the headlines a lot. That's probably a good thing. Following World War II, Romania became a Soviet satellite, ended up behind the Iron Curtain, considering they share a border with Russia. That was probably horribly inevitable. And they stayed a Soviet satellite until the whole Soviet Union started to collapse. They had a communist despot for many years, a man named Nicolae Ceausescu. And on Christmas Day 1989, Ceausescu and his charming wife were dragged from their presidential palace, taken to a place of execution, and hosed down with automatic gunfire. And they filmed it too. And the images of that were beamed around the world. It actually went viral before there was such a thing as viral. And I remember them very well. It was very shocking at the time. And then things settled down after that. Romania adopted a new constitution in 1991. Of course, there's a lot of details I'm skating over because they're only background. In March 2004, Romania joined NATO, and on the 1st of January 2007, they joined the European Union. And that was kind of the last anybody heard of Romania. They were then just quietly getting on with becoming a Western-style democracy, and they have been developing very well, which must be gratifying for them. However, things seem to have gone a little strange lately. There are two main political parties in Romania. There are other ones, but two big ones. The first is the National Liberal Party, and they're a kind of right of centre operation. And then there's the Social Democratic Party, and they're a sort of left of centre. It's very analogous to the Republicans and the Democrats in the USA, or Labour and Conservative in Britain. Now, at the end of last year, there were both parliamentary and presidential elections. Now, the parliamentary elections went smoothly enough. The Social Democrats emerged as the largest single party, and there were very big gains on the populist right. They do have a populist party. They seem to be very big fans of Donald Trump. They want to make Romania great again. But none of that was controversial. The controversial bit came with the presidential elections. Now, the presidential elections in Romania seem to follow the same model as they have in France. In other words, there are two rounds. In the first round, a number of candidates stand, and the public can vote for any of them, the Romanian public. However, the candidates with the top and second most number of votes go through to a second round where they take each other on head to head and the other candidates are eliminated. So it's only the top two most popular candidates that go through to the second round. Now, the first round was held on December the 1st. And to everyone's amazement, two rank outsiders came first and second. In second place was a woman called called Eleanor Lasconi. I hope I've pronounced that name correctly. And she represented something called the Save Romania Union. I'm looking at my notes. Save Romania Union. I'm afraid I don't know anything about them. However, the real problem came with the candidate who came top, and his name is Chalin Georgescu. I apologize to any Romanian people if I have mispronounced that name, but this is the guy, and he's the one that caused the big issue. Georgescu is very much a conservative. He's a traditionalist, he's a very religious man. Now, none of that was a problem, or at least not too much of a problem. However, some of his other views caused a big problem. Georgescu expressed pro-Russian sentiments. He also declared that he wanted Romania to be strictly neutral in the war between Ukraine and Russia. Well, that didn't go down very well. It didn't go down very well with the Romanian government. It went down even worse with the European Union. Everybody was alarmed by this. But the problem was that Georgescu was popular, and alarm bells really began to ring when opinion polls showed that in a head-to-head runoff with Miss Lasconi, Georgescu would win by a country mile. Something had to be done, and something was done. The problem is that there were grounds to be a little bit skeptical about Georgescu because prior to this presidential election, he was a nowhere man. Nobody had heard of him. In the run up to the presidential election, he suddenly exploded onto the national scene and was the front runner to win the second round. But from nowhere, nobody had heard of him. He was a completely obscure guy. A little bit more digging revealed that there was a massive social media campaign on Instagram and TikTok to promote Chalin Georgescu. And this led to the accusation, inevitably, because of his pro-Russian views, that Russia had interfered in Romania's elections, that Russia had somehow run this social media campaign to get their boy in the presidential seat. Now, there's no direct evidence of this, but Russia was blamed nonetheless. Of course, it would be. So, what happened? The second round of the presidential election was due to be held on December the 8th last year. 2 days before that, on December the 6th, the country's constitutional court heard an application. I'm not sure from whom yet. I don't think the court did this of their own volition. Somebody must have applied to the court. And the court's decision was to cancel the election. They simply annulled the first round. An annulment means it's never happened. They wiped it from history. Now, this allegedly is a machine translation of a note from the Constitutional Court in Romania. It looks semi-authentic, but I can't guarantee that it is. I've obtained it from somebody who says it is authentic, and I'm going to go with that for the moment. If I do find out it's not, I'll have to correct myself in a later video. But it's the opinion of the court, machine translated, so not very good. For example, they refer to Georgescu as the notorious, was that a very low level of notoriety? I'm sure that's not what they meant. A few weeks before the elections, in polls on voting intentions between October the 30th and November the 5th, candidate Chalin Georgescu was rated below, is that 1 million or 1%? In polls from November the 15th to the 20th, he was ranked 6th with 6.2% voting intention. And on November the 20th to the 21st, so just a week later, The polls had him at 10.6%. Now, according to the court, this was very suspicious, and the Romanian intelligence services were involved as well. Now, apparently, the court made this decision based on documents they had seen from the Romanian intelligence service, which indicated that a massive social media campaign had been paid for and run by Russia on Chalin Georgescu's behalf. And it was on this basis that the court made the decision. Of course, we're not privy to those intelligence documents. However, some people say that it's not Russia. There are other explanations. So, was Russia trying to get their preferred candidate elected in Romania? When you look at the location of Romania, you can see how crucial it is. It's in southeast Europe and it butts right up against Russia and it's on the Black Sea. It's absolutely a cornerstone of the NATO defense umbrella. So if the Russians were targeting it, it would make sense to try and get their boy elected. But there's no evidence of this, and I've looked, and there's just none available. I can't deny it was Russia, but I do think there are other possibilities. For a start, there is some information floating around that in fact the culprit is the ruling party, the actual government. They didn't want Georgescu to become president. And what they did was to lie to the intelligence services and claim that their own social media campaign was in fact Georgescu's. And it's on that basis that the intelligence services made their presentation to the court. In other words, it was a fraud. But again, is that true? There are some sources in Romania claiming this, but that would need to be corroborated before I could claim it. Of course, fingers are also pointing at NATO. Fingers are pointing at the CIA. Again, it always is. And fingers are pointing at the European Union. But there's no direct evidence of involvement of any of them. Of course, we don't know what's gone on behind the scenes. For sure, although Georgescu has expressed pro-Russian sympathies, he has made it clear that he wants Romania to stay in NATO and stay in the European Union. So why the panic about him? Well, there could be another motivation. Here is a snapshot from an article from March of last year concerning, well, you can read the headline yourself. Romania to host largest NATO military base in Europe at a place called Mikhail Kogalnis. I'm sorry, I'm not going to try and read that. I'm just going to mangle it embarrassingly. But the point is that it will be on the coast and it will be quite close to the Black Sea coast and quite close to the Russian border. Now, Georgescu has said he opposes the building of this base. But the cost of this base is $2.7 billion. That money is going to be spent in Romania. And it's going to be paid to local companies to not just build this base, but also maintain it. That's a lot of money in a country like Romania. Now, if Georgescu wants to stop this happening, could it be that there are commercial interests in Romania with sufficient clout to get either the government or the courts or the intelligence services to do their bidding? It's certainly a powerful motivation. But I'm not making this claim. I have no evidence. I'm just noting that it would be a good motive for somebody to upend Georgescu's campaign. He's threatening a lot of money. Whatever the reason, the first round of the presidential election and, of course, the second round have been annulled. Now, the last I read on the matter, the government has said that the presidential election will be rerun again sometime in the spring, but as at the time of making this video, I don't know if a date has been set. But here's the difficulty. If the presidential election is indeed rerun in the spring, what if it's a similar result? What if Georgescu takes a commanding lead again? What if he wins? Will they cancel it? Will they annul the election again? Or will they find some way to stop him standing? If he really is being backed by the Russians, then there's good reason for this. But his supporters say that this is nonsense. The reason for Georgescu's popularity is that he promised to prioritize rural affairs, and that made him very popular with countryside voters. In fairness as well, his putative second round opponent, Elena Lasconi, has also come out and condemned the court's decision, saying that it was an attack on democracy, which of course it could well have been. So we wait and see. And what about the Romanian people? How do they feel about this? There are apparently regular demonstrations on the streets of Bucharest and demonstrations outside the court. Of course, how raucous they are and how much unrest there really is, I don't know. There are no reports of any major unrest. So maybe the Romanian people accept the court's decision. Maybe they feel that protecting their membership of NATO and the European Union, which has been very good to them, is all too important, and it is worth making sure that that status is not sabotaged by any outside parties. We'll see. I think it's important what happens in the spring if the election goes ahead, and if it goes ahead fairly, and if Georgescu is allowed to stand. But what if the presidential election is not allowed to proceed fairly? What if Georgescu is not allowed to stand? And what if his supporters are right that he's not, in fact, backed by Russia? He's just very popular in the Romanian countryside. Is Lasconi then right? Is the court really then attacking the democracy? And if it stands, can Romania continue to call itself a democracy? Will they need a constitutional amendment, maybe a new constitution? Will the Romanian people, if enough of them are angry about it, decide that they're going to have another Ceausescu moment? That may be an exaggeration. But for sure, if Georgescu was not connected to Russia, and if he is unfairly excluded from standing as president, then that does undermine the whole basis of what we call liberal democracy. But for sure, if it works in Romania, it will be tried elsewhere. Romania is a test ground now, a precedent. If it works there, it may work in Germany. It may work in France. If the election's not going your way, get the court to cancel it. Is that what we're going to be facing in Europe from now on? We'll see. I hope not. I'll be keeping an eye on this. In the meantime, thank you for listening, whether you're from Romania or not. And please do remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and you'll be notified when I upload the next video. Also, if you look in the description box below, you'll find a link to the Herald newsletter. And if you're interested in geopolitics and international affairs, you will get regular email updates about those subjects delivered to your inbox. And the best thing of all, subscription is free. So go down to the description box and subscribe today. I'd like to thank you for watching this video. If you're still here, well done. And please do join me again next time.